All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Danielle Curtis from Australia. And I want to thank you for taking time to do this. I know that this match coming up that you're having is a pretty big match in Australia, and I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to anyone who might be watching this who may not have seen you fight before, whatever.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. And hi to everyone tuning in. I'm Danielle Dropbear Curtis, MMA fighter from Australia. And yeah, I'm about to make my professional debut after a very long, very full amateur career where we've done a lot of things. And it's been a journey, and I'm so excited to finally be making my professional debut. And I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit as we get into it. But yeah, so thanks to anyone that is tuning in. I can't wait to get into it and actually tell you a little bit about my journey.
Now, I want to ask you something. You might think this kind of silly, but I watch like drop bear videos. Like Australians, like most Australians I know, you can never tell if they're being serious about anything. This looks
Yeah,
like a joke,
classic
obviously, these
Australian.
videos, these drop bear videos, koalas. So tell me if you know where this came up, first of all, where people this whole drop bear thing came from. Like if you know who thought of this.
Mate,
I
drop
take it it's
bears.
not true.
Drop
Yeah.
bears are a part of Australian culture, Australian
Right.
history, and it is something that every Australian knows about. There's something that every Australian will tell foreigners about, or people that haven't been to Australia before, or obviously if they're coming over here for the first time ever. So if you ever come across an Australian, you know, if an Australian is telling you about drop bears, and you're not sure, and so you find some other random Australian that has nothing to do with the original Australian that told you about it, and you ask them about drop bears, they will tell you the exact same thing. So what a drop bear is, if you're unsure, the drop bear is basically a relative of the koala, a little bit bigger. Obviously, significantly different in the fact that a koala usually a little bit cute and cuddly. The drop bear actually drops out of trees and basically mauls people. So that's kind of why, obviously, Australians always tell foreigners and tourists about it, because you don't want to just go wandering through the bush and forget to look up. And so, yeah, it's one of those things. It's a typical Australian like legend that we all know about, and that's been told to us by um, our parents and our grandparents, and everybody passes that down generation on generation, that we all are making sure that we do educate any foreigners about drop bears. So that's kind of what we do. Yeah,
So you're saying it's real.
mate, it is as real as
Okay.
can be. It's a typical Australian legend.
Okay.
Yeah,
When
I
I
mean,
watched
I'm
the
right
videos on
here.
YouTube, I thought someone was like messing with me. Like I couldn't tell if it was real or if someone was making a joke out of it.
Well, I mean, everything in Australia can kill you, and everything in Australia seems like a joke. Some people think that Australia isn't real, so it is one of those things. It's definitely one of those Aussie legends that Australians take great pride in pulling the leg of foreigners with. So, I mean, you guys can do your own research on drop bears, but just know that one exists right here, and and yeah, it suits me and my fight style, actually, and I was given that name, so yeah.
That's interesting. You learn something new every day. Like I was researching it and I couldn't tell if it was real or someone was making a joke about it. So
Hey, it's hard to
it's
tell.
real.
It's hard to tell with Australians. It's hard to tell.
Right. Very hard. So, I wanted to kind of talk to you, like I was telling you offline. I have a friend, Justin Lawrence, for people who don't know him. He was involved in the early days of MMA in Australia. And he called me and probably talked to me for about an hour about this match, but really about the backstory. He was saying the importance of this match, not just because of the two of you and what you've done, you know, the accolades you've achieved, but also this Whamma Gamma type of rivalry, so to speak. Do you feel that
Yeah.
way?
I mean, at the end of the day, every fight is your biggest fight. I mean, it's professional debut. It's, so it's big in itself. Uh, the the bureaucracy or the backstory between the two organizations far exceeds us two as fighters. So I think there's a lot of eyes on this because of that. Because essentially, IMAF and GAMA, so International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, I think, and Global Association of Mixed Martial Arts. So they both hold world championships. Where tournament format is basically like the Olympics of MMA. Both of them are trying to get the sport of MMA into the Olympics, so it's a big thing for both of them. They both recognize, like obviously you go over there, very similar to the format of boxing in the Olympics, where you weigh in every day, you compete every day, you fight multiple times, and all the countries all over the world. If you win the entire thing, you get a gold medal. They play your national anthem, all of those kind of things. So they're very similar in that regard. Really, the only difference is IMAF is all amateurs. So amateur rule set, but everyone that can compete in that, only amateurs can compete. Whereas Gamma is still an amateur rule set and the same equipment used. So they both utilize the slightly bigger gloves and the material shin guards. Same rules, no elbows, all of that kind of stuff, and three-minute rounds. But the difference is Gamma is pro am, so it's just anyone who's considered the best from those countries can come over. So they can already be professional fighters. So amateurs and professionals both compete at Gamma. And I guess that's the only real difference in terms of like the format. And so when I won my gold medal, I actually did, for my gold medal match, I actually did fight a professional fighter that was already 4 fights into her professional career. So that's really the only difference. And it's not saying that, you know, I'm not going to say one level is better than the other or one's worth more than the other. I'll leave that to everyone else to decide. I have my own opinions. But basically, we have both won the gold medal for Australia in each of those organizations. And so both of them are obviously fighting to be the one reputable world championships and to be the one that is getting the sport into the Olympics. So obviously there is that rivalry there, and we see that in every country and every set of athletes that are determining, especially amateurs, who they want to go and compete for, which one of these competitions. And so I think that's why there's a lot of eyes, because this, I think to my knowledge, this may be the first time that we're seeing 2 world champions from the competing organizations, yeah, compete against each other. So I think that's why there's bringing a lot of eyes to the sport, or this particular matchup, is because of that. And then the other part of that is that both of us, but both of us have a lot of accolades. Like obviously we both have the world titles. I've just gone on to win another 2 different titles in 2 different, like 2 other weight divisions. So 3 different. So I fought and won titles across 3 different weight divisions, which is, I don't think, has been done before in terms of holding them all at the same time. And both of us have had so many fights within a short amount of time as well. We've both been super active. So it seems to be like a clash of the titans kind of thing. We really are like 2 of the best fighters fighting each other. And so usually when 2 people are making their professional debut, it's just for a regular professional fight. But this fight is actually going to be straight up for a professional title, which is not common either. But given our accolades, we're actually ranked quite highly in the pound for pound rankings across Australia and New Zealand. We're actually ranked higher than, like the other Amis, but also some of the pros in the respective weight divisions and stuff as well. So basically, the officiating body and the show that made this matchup the show put it to the officiating body that went, I know they're only, making their debut, but these are the two best fighters. So we want this to be a title fight, straight up. So I think that might also be sort of playing into that as well. So it's a big deal for everyone else, and it's so cool that everyone in Australia is like really excited to watch this fight, and I'm so excited to be a part of it and to go out there. And I know that we're going to absolutely steal the show, and everybody's going to be a winner because we're going to put on an amazing fight, and the sport, and especially women's MMA, is going to be the real winner at the end of the night. So yeah, I'm super pumped. Yeah, I think it's a big deal, but yeah, I guess not many people outside of Australia probably know about it though.
Yeah, I had said really, not just because of what he had told me, but because of the accolades of both of you, that it probably could say this is maybe the biggest debut match that women's MMA has had
Yeah, maybe.
anywhere.
Yeah, that's a big call, and I'll leave that to you and everyone else to make. But it definitely feels like it's a big moment, and especially too, like I think people are there's a lot of eyes on that for all of those reasons, and also like I only fought 2 weeks ago, and it's only 2 weeks until this fight, the professional debut. So uh, a lot of people are also tuning in to sort of be like, wow, like how are you fighting twice in 4 weeks, let alone two title fights in 4 weeks, and then also making that transition from amateur to professional in such a short time frame. And obviously, it's a big risk. Um, and it was big risks fighting at all of these different weight divisions. But at the end of the day, if you want to achieve great things, you have to take the risks that no one else is willing to take. And at the end of the day, that's what I'm here to do. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great match. And yeah, there's definitely some eyes on it. And I hope that we can do uh, women's MMA proud and really represent our country, Australia, and really put it on the map.
Let me ask you this, because you talked about the fight you just had. Were you at all concerned? Wow, I got this big fight coming up. Should I do this fight? I mean, maybe I'll miss this fight if something
Yeah, I
happens.
mean, it's definitely, it was something that we talked about and we considered because we had the first one locked in, and we got given obviously this opportunity, this matchup. And initially we didn't even know that they were going to make it a title fight. Like this professional debut, we just assumed it would be just a regular three round fight. And yeah, my coach and I talked about it, my team talked about it, and at the end of the day, I take the opportunities as they come. I think it's really special that I was afforded this opportunity, and you take the opportunity or you lose it. And at the end of the day, I want to fight the best people, and I want to do the things that no one else is doing. And obviously, you have those thoughts where you think about it. Okay, well, what happens? What happens if I lose the first fight? What happens if I get damaged? What happens if I pull out? All of these things. But at the end of the day, everyone knew that second fight, like everyone was aware that I already had the other one booked. So at the end of the day, if everybody was happy to accept that matchup, knowing that I already had the matchup only a few weeks beforehand, that well, why am I worried if they're not worried? You know, why am I worrying about it? At the end of the day, whatever will be will be. And if I can't make that matchup happen, unfortunately, that's how it is. But I believe in myself, and my coaches and my team believed in me. And everyone's sort of doing the what ifs on the negative side. What if you get hurt? What if you get injured?
Mhm.
What if you lose? But we like to look at it from the other point of view. Okay, what if you go out there and you stop someone in 20 seconds and you're not injured, you're in best shape that you've ever been, and you don't take a scratch? What if you win? But also, like, how are you going to feel if you turn down that opportunity because you were scared about, the fear of something that hasn't happened? Um, so rather than be like, oh, well, it's a big risk, these things could happen, it's like, nah, flip it on its head. What happens if you go out there, you win that, you're fine, then you go on and you do the next thing? At the end of the day, I want to achieve great things. I have to take the risks that other people aren't going to, and I believe in myself, and my team believes in me, and I really took the words and advice from my coach. And when we talked about it, he's like, well, you fought when you went to Gamma, you fought multiple times. Like, you fought back to back days with only one. Like, you literally fought day after day. So with this, you have 4 weeks. That's so much more time. So you've already done this before. Like, 4 weeks compared to 24 hours
Mm-hmm.
is huge. So um, yeah, I really take lead from my team, and trust in my skills and ability, um, to, yeah, do what I need to do, and try and achieve or try and achieve something great. So yeah.
Now, this event, Enduro, like in terms of Australian MMA, like how many people attend these kind of events? How big is it, you think?
Well, it's already sold out. It's been sold out for a little bit. And then obviously there's, they live stream and they get quite a lot. So Enduro is a relatively new promotion, but from the get go, from the very first show, because I fought on their first show, this is only their fourth show. So their first show was in February last year. And from the get go, their show was amazing. They've like sold out every time. They've put on really good matchups. They've got the streams happening, and really good quality. And they look after the fighters, and I think that they're going to be a pretty big force to be reckoned with. Because they're straight away from their very first show, they're competing with a lot of the other higher level shows in Australia. So yeah, like, I think it's going to be a massive night too, because this one sold out still a fair way out from the fight as well. Yeah. So, some people may not know the show yet, or obviously outside of Australia, but I think they're going to be a really big one as well. And I think this will be sort of potentially one of those defining moments for them as well. And I think they'll have that footage and they'll be playing it, and keeping that for their records when I think both of us will end up in some big international organizations, probably in the not too distant future. So yeah, I think it's going to be big for them as well.
Now, I want to ask you about Fane. Like, I watched some of her fights. It seems like maybe she's a little bit more ground oriented. I don't know if you agree with me, but it seems like that's maybe her strong area, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I would say that as well. But the thing is, like, if everyone is getting better outside of fights, and like, I like to think that my opponents are good everywhere, and
mhm.
train for the fact that they're good everywhere, because that's my biggest attribute is actually being well rounded. I'm not a specialist. I'm not incredibly perfect, amazing at any one thing, but I think my fight IQ and my adaptability to just do whatever I have to do, and take and feel comfortable fighting anywhere is what works for me. And yeah, I think she's obviously utilized a lot of her grappling in her matches, but that might be just because that's what she has a lot of success with. That's what she feels comfortable with. But she may have a lot of other weapons that she's been working on that she has a lot of success with, that she just hasn't felt the need to show because no one's pushed her, or no one's had that same level of grappling, or something like that. So and I think I have a much higher level of grappling than any of her previous opponents. So yeah, I just, I don't get too caught up in what I've seen her have success with before, because I have no doubt her and her coaches and her team, because she comes from a great gym and a great team that are always working. So I have no doubt that she's worked on everything and all of her areas. So I don't know. She might come out and just want to stand and bang and try and knock me out. So you got to be ready for everything.
Do you feel any pressure as a representative of Gamma, so to speak?
Um, I mean, I always want to perform well for me, and I think I try and not to worry about those external pressures. Obviously, the selectors for Gamma saw something in me when they selected me to go and represent Australia and compete. So it would mean a lot to me to be able to, I guess, kind of. I don't know. I don't know if it would be giving back to them, but continuing to represent them, I guess, in this fight. Like at the end of the day, it's not like I'm signed by them or getting paid or by them or anything like that. So at the end of the day, this fight's all about me. But it would be cool. They've always sort of, I guess, followed my journey and stuff as well. So it would be really cool to, I guess, continue to represent them as well. But I don't feel pressure from them directly. Like at the end of the day, I just want to represent myself and do the best that I can and put on a massive performance so that, we all look good.
Now, I want to ask you kind of about your beginnings in martial arts. When was like your first exposure to it?
My first exposure, I literally grew up in a tiny, tiny, tiny country town in the middle of nowhere in Australia. The next closest town is an hour and a half away drive. So I had no exposure to MMA or really any martial arts except like karate. Um, until I moved away. So I moved to Canberra for university when I turned 18. And that's when I sort of first saw the UFC. And then I became like the the biggest fan. I became a super fan and I watched everything and I went back and watched all the origins and I just fell in love with it. But I was a broke uni student. So I actually didn't start training. I didn't ever think that I would fight. I just didn't think that I would ever end up doing that. And then it wasn't until, a handful of years later, a Muay Thai gym opened up right next to where I was working. I finally had a full-time job and all that kind of stuff. So I went in there because it kind of fell in my lap. Started only trained there for a few months and I realized very quickly that, I don't want to do Muay Thai. I want to do MMA. And then so that kind of helped me and the coach of that gym kind of helped me in terms of getting my foot in the door and finding an MMA coach. And then that's kind of where it started. So I started, a bit later in life. And I think that's the other thing with this fight. Both of us, I think, started our MMA journeys a little bit later on in life. So yeah, I think we've been on sort of very parallel paths, which is kind of really cool. Yeah. So yeah, and then I just fell in love with the sport even more. I was already in love with it from a fan perspective. And then yeah, it was just like, yeah, I want to do this. This is what I'm meant to be doing. Had a lot of adversity and nearly walked away from the sport a number of times, but you know, I just I just couldn't. I just love it so much. And yeah, I just had to still be involved in it no matter what. And then yeah, now I'm here. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Why'd you want to walk away from it? Was it just you were tired of it
I,
at different points, or?
no, no, no. It was never that I didn't enjoy the sport. It was so at one point, like, and this is before COVID. So I went from, only training for a short amount of time before starting to fight. And then I had like 4 fights in the first year, and then I could not get a fight for 2 years.
Mhm.
That's a long time. And I was in basically fight camp over and over again, continuously for 2 years. Couldn't get a fight. I couldn't get a boxing fight. I couldn't get a Muay Thai fight. I couldn't get an MMA fight. Um, and like I would get matchups and then it would get to like between like 5 and 10 days out from the fight and my opponent would pull out. And then obviously like there's not enough girls as it is, but let alone no one's taking a short notice fight. So not that short notice anyway. And then the next promotion would immediately be like, that's all right. I'll get you on my show and get a match up. And then so I'm like, have a few days rest, straight back into fight camp. And I broke my body down, I broke my mind down, and it broke me that I'm like, why am I putting everything in my life on hold and making these sacrifices and doing all these things, breaking my body down and um over and over and over again when I can't even fight. Like I'm not even getting to do the sport. Like, so what's the point? And yeah, that was really hard. Like, obviously it's really hard when you have a few fights fall through, but man, I had so many over and over and over for pretty much 2 years. Um, and that was tough. It was like, and I already started later in life. So I already felt like I was so far behind. And part of that too is was like I was just saying yes to anything. And so like I do have losses on my record from fighting at weight divisions I shouldn't have and probably taking matches I shouldn't have. I accept those losses and I'm grateful for them because they taught me a lot. They taught me I took so much out of them, and they made me who I am today. But I just fought anyone I could, and you know, then yeah, it just it really broke me. And yeah, I nearly walked away from the sport. And so what I did end up doing was just doing a bunch of jujitsu, like grappling tournaments, so I could have some form of competition or some form of something where I could see some kind of progress or something. Um, and yeah, there was that point in time. There was another point in time where it was kind of like I'd lost everything in my life. Um, and was broken down, and I just felt like I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know what I was doing with my life. And like I had the worst year of my life ever, and I didn't have a gym anymore, and I didn't have, I did like I literally didn't even know where I was going to be living. I didn't, I had nothing. I didn't even know if I had a support network or what I was going to do. And so then I thought about, thought about leaving the sport then, as well, because it just, yeah, it what happened sort of broke me, and yeah, I was gonna walk away from the sport. And then I found my current gym, and I was kind of like, I just want to have one more fight. I just want to have one more fight. And I went out there, and that was actually when I fought on Enduro number one, and I had the best time. And in that fight, I didn't want it to be over. I didn't want to finish the fight. I didn't want to stop my opponent. I just wanted to go out there and enjoy every second I did. And I had this like list. I had this list of things I'd love to pull off in a fight.
Stuff. Yeah.
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 Do you need me to talk about the list part again?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And sort of before the fight, I kind of had, this list, had a list of things that I would, I'd love to be able to pull off in a fight, and things, nasty jab, big right hand, spinning back fist, nasty leg kicks, picking someone up and dumping them. Like, I did a big, like, high crutch and slammed my opponent into the ground, take their back, a whole list of things. And I literally did all of them. I did every single one, and I was, so content and so happy with that. And I had my moment in there that where I was in there and I was just like, I love this. Like this was amazing. And then I actually got selected by Gamma, to go over and compete at Gamma and represent Australia. And I just couldn't not take that opportunity. Like I had never in my life ever thought that I would do anything sport related. I never thought that I would be an athlete. Calling myself an athlete is still very strange to me. Um, and so that was never a dream of mine. I never thought that it would be anything that I could ever do. So going and representing my country just kind of meant everything to me. And I didn't have any preconceived notions of what it was going to be like or how I would go. I literally was just like, I'm going to go over there, have fun. I'm going to give it everything. I'm going to do everything I can to become a world champion. But you know what? At the end of the day, this is just an added bonus. you know, and that's what I did. I went over there and I won all my fights and got a gold medal and brought it home. And for anyone that's sort of seen that footage, when I win the second the when I win on the last day in the grand final against a pro fighter, and like all of the media for that one was that she was gonna sweep the division and she was gonna win and she was a favorite and whatever. And then I stopped her with ground and pound. Actually, all of my fights were stoppages at Gamma, and yeah, I get up and I just immediately start crying because it just came off the back of like the worst time in my life where I was gonna leave the sport. And yeah, to have gone over there and done that, like it was just so emotional, and it really felt like it was, you know, that moment to sort of say like, no, this is what you're meant to be doing, like this is exactly where you're meant to be. And you know, all those struggles and all that adversity like leading up to this point was all for a reason, and you're meant to be here. So yeah, so it was pretty emotional. And yeah, uh then it was just full steam ahead because I knew in that moment like this is what I meant to do. So then I trusted in myself, and there's really been a big change and shift, you know, in myself in terms of, you know, trusting and believing in myself and my skills, and going, you know, well, why not? Why not go and achieve great things? So yeah.
Where did they send you to compete in Gamma?
When?
No, where did they send you? Where did
Oh,
you go?
where?
Yeah.
Oh, so the Gamma World Championships were in Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Cool,
So
cool.
literally the other side of the world, opposite time frame. Yeah, which was, it was crazy. It was such a wild experience, like amazing. Yeah, because I'd never flown to the other side of the world before either. So yeah, the whole thing was such a crazy, surreal experience.
Yeah, they have a great fight history there too. So
Yeah, yeah, and
yeah.
it was really well run, and you know, yeah, it was just such a cool experience. And you know, fighting alongside, you know, people from all over the world was just so cool.
How was the response from, like, you were talking about the media, like the Dutch media? How was their response to you when you won?
Well, it's funny you asked that. I actually ended up getting followed by like a local sort of media crew. And that actually happened because they were going to follow the American team, but the American team had their own like media set up. So they sort of said, no, we don't want any like outsiders. And so I had just started following them because they had done like a podcast with someone that I know from Australia, an Australian fighter. So I just started following them, and it just so happened that they were like, well, you know, we want to go to the event, we want to follow someone. They reached out to me and were like, um, do you like, can we follow you? Can you talk to the coaches? Can we follow the Australian team? And I spoke to them, like the coaches, because I didn't have my coach or any of my team over there. I only went over with my partner. So I was, you know, being coached by people I'd met the day before the competition started. So, you know, that was all new. I was like, oh, let me contact them and ask them because I don't know. And then
Hmm.
yeah, so I did have them. That was Air Media come and interview me and sort of follow me around and that kind of stuff. So that was really cool because I got some footage and stuff that otherwise I wouldn't have had. But other than them specifically following me, all the other media around all my fights, I was the underdog in all of them, and they were all sort of about my opponents. And I didn't really realize because I didn't look at it or anything when I was there. But when I looked at it afterwards, I actually seen that I was like the underdog in all of the fights. And I was like, oh well, you know, it is what it is. But you know, as I said, like Gamma and you know, other media and stuff have followed my journey since then, and been really supportive. So, you know, I think it was such a positive experience for me with all of them that they've kind of then followed on since that win over there. So yeah, it's been really good.
Let me ask you this, because you're saying you're coming off a hard time. why do you think you were so successful after that? You know, achieving these three titles, and
Yeah,
what happened,
that's
do
a
you think?
great question. I think it's got a lot to do with the person that I am, and like I work really hard, and I worked really hard through all those times, even though I wasn't getting fights, and I was, nearly going to walk away, and I, multiple times, and I faced adversity and I had losses, and all those things that break you down, and people usually walk away, and I think all of those things still add up to make me who I am, that I am determined and that I will keep working, and no matter what. And that kind of shows in how I fight as well. That I the biggest issue was during those hard times, especially that when my life fell apart, that impacted me heavily mentally, and I kind of forgot who I was for a little bit, and I had lost all belief and faith in myself, which I'd never sort of not had before. And through fighting and achieving those things, and doing those things that I thought were impossible, and having people get around and want to support me and follow my journey, and they truly believed in me, and I couldn't understand why, but like they helped me learn to believe in myself. And then that kind of, I just went with that and went, no, all the things that I'm doing, like they add up, and they're meaningful, and you've got to follow your passion, and that doesn't mean that it's easy. It's hard, but I embrace the hard. I look at all the adversities that I've faced, and I go, well, I wouldn't be here without them. And I treat every day like that. It's that gratitude that I get to do what I do, but I need to make the most of every second. I need to work incredibly hard, and I plan everything. And I, I will be so present in every moment, in every training session. I will be trying to get better in some way. And progress isn't linear, and I don't necessarily get heaps better every day. But I'm always mindful of that, and I've done a lot of work on myself. I've engaged a team, and it's honestly, it's literally just hard work. It's hard work and self belief towards a goal, and that's why I've been successful, because I'm not a natural athlete. I never was. I was trash at any kind of sport growing up. That's why I never thought I'd ever be an athlete. But I tried hard, and over time, hard work beats talent. Over time, hard work beats anything else, because if you're working hard and dedicated, you will find success. And if you can battle through the struggles and not give up, that teaches you something, and you become a person that can fight through adversity. Um, and I meant that figuratively, but also in my case, doing a combat sport, literally. If I can fight through like life adversity and mental adversity, and like, I can fight through the physical adversity easy. And I think that's it. Is like in life and all these things, I found a way to keep going and trust in the process, and know that this is what I want to do. So when I'm in there in the cage, I channel that this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is, I will find a way. I trust in myself that I will find a way to, come out the other side, and, be successful. And that doesn't necessarily just mean, just a win or lose thing. It's like the person that I am, and, doing well for the sport, and bringing exposure, and being a good role model, and being that person that I wish I had, and that's kind of my why in the sport. It's like I want to achieve all these things so that it can put me in a position where I can make meaningful change to the sport, and, meaningful change for the next generation. And so I guess that's part of it as well, is that my why is bigger than just me. I don't want to just win so that I can be a champion and have a belt. Like, I want to be in a position where I become undeniable in my influence. Like when you become the champion, and you get to the top of the organization, you can make change. We've seen other fighters do it. Like, like we've seen how big Conor McGregor was, he he paved the way to be getting paid more. We've seen Ronda Rousey pave the way to get women into the UFC. When you achieve these things from that position, that's where you can make meaningful change. So my why is much bigger than me. So I think about that as well and channel that into everything that I do. I want to make this sport better for everyone in it, especially the next generation. And I want to inspire people to chase their dreams and that you can achieve great things if you're willing to be dedicated and work really, really hard.
I want to ask you about, obviously there's a lot of tension on Australia and New Zealand because of the success of Volkanovski, Adesanya, Hooker, et cetera, et cetera. Kind of tell me your thoughts on that as someone who's competing there, who's been successful so far yourself. Just kind of maybe how they're doing and kind of what your feelings are around that for people that aren't in Australia who maybe are looking at that from the outside, like UFC fans and stuff.
Honestly, it's so incredible to be seeing the Anzacs, the Australian and New Zealand fighters, not just making it to the top level, but we're dominating now. Like we're really showcasing, what we're capable of and the sport and representing our country. And that's something like Australians are very proud people. We are always proud of where we come from. And representing our country means a lot to us. So it's really really cool to see, but we're also seeing it not just at the top level at the moment. My partner and I, we actually commentate shows as well, local shows across all combat sports. So not just MMA, boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, K1, like all of them. And we obviously attend jiu-jitsu comps and that kind of stuff as well. And we are literally seeing just all of these sports progress so far, and we're seeing people on the local and amateur like level having their debut fight or only a couple of fights in, and the level is so high, and it's so refreshing to see. It's so just amazing, and I'm so grateful to be a part of the sport and hopefully keep paving the way for the next generation. But it's also partly because of those people like Volkanovski, like Rob Whitaker, that are in at the top level and becoming champions that have inspired, the current generation to realize that, we're not behind the other countries. We can make it too, and we can go out there and we can be successful, and we can be world champions. And don't let the stigma that we've heard plenty of times before that Australia is not good, and these sports have only been in Australia for a short amount of time, and you're never going to catch up to the Brazilian champions or the US champions. And we're out there showing that maybe we haven't had wrestling for very long, maybe we still don't have as high a level, but we'll show you that we are resilient people, and we will go out there and do what we have to do to win. And we have champions, and we have such a wealth of talent across all of the combat sports. We're seeing a high level Muay Thai fighters, boxers, K1, kickboxing, all coming out of Australia, as well as MMA. So it's incredible to see, and I know that all of the current fighters at the top level fighting in the big organizations are really inspiring everyone here within Australia to chase those dreams. And I guess that's what I want to do too. So I take a lot of inspiration from them, and you sort of see it that all the Aussies are tough, durable, and they're very hardworking. And I think that's a lot of the attributes of us as a nation.
Why do you think they kind of bursted out kind of all at the same time?
Um, I don't know if they did. I think it's more just an exposure
Mm.
thing. Like Australia's had people in the UFC for,
Oh
a
yeah,
number
yeah.
of years, a number of years.
Mhm.
I think the difference is like obviously the sport's kind of been trying to catch up. We've been trying to play catch up, you know, call it like I see it. Our training, the sports just weren't in Australia, like we didn't have jiu-jitsu, we didn't have wrestling, we didn't have the level of striking that we have. But as I said before, not only like we are resilient people and we're very hardworking. That's work ethic is, a very common trait of all the top athletes, but especially from this part of the world. And I think that's what's sort of seen us not just filter one or two in. We've kind of we've gone like this because of our hard work and our work ethic and our just want to be there and want to represent our country. And I think that's kind of why we've kind of just seen it rather than sort of very slowly get a few fighters. We've just gone, yeah, we've just exploded because everybody is, really put their all in. And yeah, I think that's why we've kind of seen the sport explode the way it has here. And we're seeing so many people have so much success at the top level.
Yeah, I remember. I'm from the old school, man. So I remember people like Chris Haseman, Ian Chafe, Brian Ebersol, those kind of guys from the early years. So yeah, they've definitely been around. But what I meant was like we're Volkanovski champion, Adesanya champion. Why do
Yeah,
you
well,
think they all
again,
broke out kind of like, you know, at the
yeah,
same?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where they all sort of became champions and stuff. And I think that also come down to the opportunity as well. I don't think um honestly, I don't think the big promotions they also had that sort of misguided thought like, oh, we'll get a couple Australians on, because we'll do a card in Australia once every couple of years or whatever. So we need to have some fighters. So I think it was about some of our fighters getting those opportunities to get their foot in the door to then showcase we do have that level. Um, and as I was saying, like obviously the hard work, they were putting it in, but they needed those opportunities. And once one or two got in, then they were like, and that's the other thing too, the Australian people from a fan base, again, very proud people, very patriotic. So every time an Australian or New Zealand fighter fights, Australia and New Zealand are right behind them. So then it opened up this big market where, these bigger promotions realized that there's a lot of people following the sport in this country or these two countries now. So we need to then bring events back because we'll essentially make money and people will be watching it and we're getting lots of pay-per-view buys from over in Australia. So then that opened up the door for more opportunity, I think, um, because they want to fill those cards with local fighters because they want obviously people to turn up to the events. And then those opportunities are what allowed those fighters to get their foot in the door, showcase what they're made of, and become undeniable to get those title opportunities. And it literally all of them just work their asses off to get there. Like Volk fought everyone. He fought everyone to get a title. Like
Yeah.
and Izzy came over being already so, like already having so many accolades. And he went out there and was devastatingly, finishing people. Rob literally fought a murderer's row. He fought everyone in the division. They gave him everyone before he got to actually fight for the title. So they earned their stripes, and I think they have opened up those doors for everyone. But I think it was literally the hard work of like the earlier fighters representing Australia and the fan base in Australia exploding to bring those opportunities, and then they've all capitalized, and then that's allowed that next step of the big promotions realizing, oh, okay, there's a big market here, there's opportunities. Wow, these fighters coming out of Australia are good, they are up to this level. Let's get more and more. So I think it's kind of been that snowball effect where it started small and then picked up momentum and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Now, how much coverage does it get in Australia, like on news or whatever? How big is it compared to other sports?
Oh, okay. Media in Australia is really funny. Like Volk and Rob get some mainstream media, but not a lot. I don't know what it is or why. Like there are obviously some dedicated like media around combat sports. The thing is, there's a huge fan base in
Yeah.
Australia and New Zealand, huge. But I think it's this very interesting, weird dynamic of like mainstream media doesn't like to cover combat sports very much across any of them. Like maybe boxing, like when Jeff Horn won against Pacquiao, like that was everywhere. And I guess you know there's a few boxing fights that they'll sort of say, but it'll still be the same thing. And then same with like when Rob won and when Volt won and whatever, they'll be very, very short sort of clips saying like, and Australia has another world champion or this person defended their belt, against this person. That's it. Like that, there wouldn't be huge build up media and heaps of like stories and stuff. Cause yeah, I think the mainstream media is still funny about combat sports here. Cause like it was only a handful of years ago that they changed the rules to allow people to fight in cages in Victoria. Which is insane because the cage is there for fighter safety. Like there was still that very outdated, misinformed mentality, which I think is very in line with the fact that we were behind in the sport, in awareness, in the training, in the skills, and all of those things. We're very behind all those other countries. So I think we were behind, and we've been behind in terms of awareness of like mainstream media. Like the fan base is there and it's huge. But in terms of breaking those stereotypes, I think we're probably still a little bit behind in terms of that mainstream media. And I think it's also got a lot to do with, you know, who's in the mainstream media, that it's probably an older audience, because obviously online and all of that kind of stuff, and those demographics, like obviously there's a lot more sort of media and things going on there, but like the mainstream TV, radio, like newspapers, that's that older demographic, I think, and I think that's why they're really resistant to combat sports.
Mhm. Let me ask you about one thing because you had mentioned a little bit, but during COVID, obviously Australia is pretty hardcore. I actually had a friend, I don't know if you had heard about, I don't know how much news it got, but I used to live in Hawaii. I knew a guy, JQ, and he played for University of Hawaii. He was contracted to Ryzen. He was training at Craig Jones's gym. And, also Japan was strict also. Obviously, they weren't having fights.
Yeah.
So in his infinite wisdom, I guess he thought it'd be a good idea to get involved in narcotics or whatever. And he
Oh
got in a lot of
no.
trouble. Did you hear about that or no?
No, I didn't hear about
Okay.
that, but oh
I
no.
was just curious. Yeah, so he was having the same problem. I guess you could say he couldn't fight. I don't know why he just didn't leave Australia. I don't know how that worked. Maybe he didn't have enough
You
money. I don't
couldn't.
know. But
Once
he
we got
couldn't
locked
fight in
down, you could.
Japan because he was under
Yeah.
contract. Obviously couldn't fight in Australia. I yeah, so
Just
you
stuck.
you had some of the same issues.
Oh,
Yeah.
literally everyone in Australia couldn't fight for almost 2 years. Like on and off, there was like we all got locked down for like a year, and then we got out of lockdown, and there was a couple of shows, and then we went back into lockdown. So pretty much everyone didn't fight for that period of time, which was obviously horrible, and it was hard for so many people. Unfortunately, like there was a lot of people that lost their lives during that time. It was a really, really tough time for Australia and Australians. And yeah, it was a rough time for everybody. And the fact that it's one thing that we couldn't fight, but it's another thing too that, we were locked down, so we couldn't train, you know. So that's hard because for a lot of people, fighting and training, that's part of who you are, but that's also part of how you, I don't know, deal with stress, pressure, deal with all those kind of issues that situation was actually creating. So it was very, very tough. And yeah, like we couldn't do anything. It wasn't just fighting. It was, literally anything. We couldn't go out and eat in a restaurant. We couldn't even go outside. We could go outside for a specified, 15 minutes a day kind of thing at one point. You couldn't leave your house. You couldn't see your friends and family. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then yeah, we come out the other side, and ever since we come out the other side of COVID, oh my goodness, Every fight show is putting on shows all the time. And for the first time, every fighter is like willing to fight, or like maybe not every fighter, but like I feel like more so than ever before. Like I could never have imagined that I would be able to have 7 fights in a year and a half, because I struggled to get one in 2 years. And everybody's showing up, making sure that they, make weight and they fight and all of that kind of stuff. And people, you still get some people that try and handpick fights, but other than that, the vast majority of people are happy to fight. Um, and yeah, as I said, there's so many shows on all the time now. It's like we're trying to make up for all that time that we didn't have anything. So yeah, I mean the sport is just really booming now that we're on that other side. But yeah, it was a really, really tough time for everyone in Australia, whether you're in combat sports or not. But obviously for all of us and people that maybe relied on that money and training, people that run gyms, all your gyms are just immediately shut down, it was really, really tough. And I'm so glad that we've made it out the other side now.
Now, as kind of as we're winding down the interview, I kind of wanted to ask you, what's something that's important to you, or something that, you may want to end the interview on. I really enjoy interviewing because you seem very thoughtful about everything that you're talking about, or answering. So I was wondering if you kind of had a message you wanted to leave, or even where people could follow you, see some of the things you're doing, your podcasts, so on.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, well, obviously, as I've sort of said, my main goal is to change the sport for the better, and represent the sport and be a good role model. And I feel like that's the path that I'm on, and that's what I plan on doing, and I want to take this to the highest level. So if anyone does want to follow my journey, I would be eternally grateful for it, because the more people that want to be a part of it, it just makes me feel so just warm and fuzzy, and it really fills my cup. So you can actually find me on any social media by searching Drop Bear MMA. So Drop Bear MMA. And I have just started a podcast, which I'm about to start releasing some episodes, and it's called Drop Bear Downpour. And yeah, if you would like to follow that, basically what it's going to be about is, what it's like inside and outside of fighting, what life is like. Some really cool, I guess, behind the scenes, and I have my partner sort of co-hosted, and it's been really fun chatting with him, learning about what these things are like from his perspective. We're going to chat to some awesome guests, tell some funny stories. About things inside and outside of MMA, some funny stuff outside as well. And yeah, use that platform to continue to sort of, hopefully bring exposure to the sport in a positive way. And as I said, there will be some non MMA related stuff in there as well. But, that's my main goal in life, is to take this journey as far as I possibly can, and hopefully change some lives along the way, even if just one person gets something out of it, or I can make one change that's going to help the next generation. That's what I'm here to do, and I'm here to try and achieve great things. And at the end of the day, I just want to share my passion and love for this sport, and hope that 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 there can be some other people out there that maybe get involved and learn to love the sport the way that I do. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to everyone that is involved with this sport, because you make it what it is. And, you don't have to be a part of it in terms of fighting or coaching or anything like that. Even just watching and being a fan and being involved, because without you guys, we don't get to do this and do what we love. So thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of it. And that includes you as well. Being part of the media and interviewing all of us and bringing exposure to the sport. I do really, 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 really appreciate it. And thank you so much for reaching out to me and having me on.
Now, your podcast, where are you going to have it at, where people
Um,
can watch
so
it?
my podcast will be coming out on all platforms. It will be a video podcast. So if you want to watch it, you'll probably want to watch it on YouTube. But I will be doing the audio version on all your regular podcast platforms. If you follow the Instagram page, again, just Drop Bear Downpour. You can follow Facebook as well, but on the Instagram page, especially if you're like listening it just audio only, but you're curious about if we reference a video or anything like that, what we're actually going to do is just pop up any videos that we reference or show up in an episode actually on the Instagram and put them in story highlights, so you can just go check them out. You can listen on any of the audio platforms, but obviously it would make a big difference to me if you could follow it on the YouTube as well, because I put a lot of effort into having the video there as well.
Is it
Yeah.
Drop Bear Downpour on YouTube also?
Yep. Drop
Okay.
Bear Downpour on everything. So yeah, easy to find. Drop Bear MMA, Drop Bear Downpour. And yeah, it's called Drop Bear Downpour because when I first started fighting, I kind of wanted to sort of talk about my friends, family, my followers, everyone, as sort of as a collective term, and there wasn't already a collective term of a specific one for drop bears, so that's what we called it, Drop Bear Downpour. And every single person that follows along on the journey is part of the Drop Bear Downpour, and I'm very, very grateful for everyone that makes up that. So had to call the podcast that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, everyone subscribe to it.
Thank
Drop
you.
down. Um, I want to thank you for taking time to do this again. What I love about doing this stuff, and what you probably will too, obviously, is, I mean, I don't know you, but I already got to meet you, talk about this fight. I know people from all over. It's
Love
incredible to do this
connecting
kind of
people.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Combat community is very small when you think about it. And it's so cool meeting other people within the sport, or that, have a passion in this sport. Some of the best people in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate your time. I'll let you get to watching the fights and stuff. And you know, love to have you back on, after the fight or whenever. It's a great
Yeah,
interview and it
absolutely.
was a lot of fun.
I'd love to come back anytime you'll have me. And we can do another catch up. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So everyone, this is Danielle Curtis, and I want to thank everyone for checking out this episode. And until next time, take care.